A leader has to take the risks.
So I'm with Natasha Hansen today. She is a famous comedian, actress, producer, writer, and what else is she? She is an entrepreneur. So she's on Wealth on the Beach podcast today, and I'm really fired up about that. I've been fired up about this, and I really put in a lot of effort here. So I got some really cool questions for you today. I put in a lot of effort because I really wanted this to be fun for the audience. So if you guys want to laugh a little bit, have a little bit of fun with us, and talk a little bit about business and everything, you got to hang with us because we're going to have a good time. Make sure you like, subscribe. And by the way, seek out Natasha on Instagram. She's got a great Instagram, funny stuff. And so you want to follow her on Instagram, follow her on, all the mph.com as well, comedy.com. So she's got a website. We'll talk about all that later, but just make sure you check her out because she's got some good stuff, and she's got some like a little mini series coming out, mini show on Netflix coming out pretty soon too. So really proud of you, Natasha. Everything that you're doing is awesome, man.
Thank you. You know how it is. Sometimes you feel like you're not doing enough. Even when you're highly ambitious, you're like, I am not. Yeah. What am I even up to? And then you hear it listed, and you're like, oh God, no wonder I'm tired.
And actually, I think I screwed up. It's on Amazon, right? Is it on Amazon? Okay, yes, Amazon. There we go. All right. So, and look, and then she also is a business owner. She started mybreakupregistry.com. And so it's kind of helped people bounce back from breakups by fundraising for things like new furniture, new pots and pans, even to help out with rent. So we're going to talk about that too. And so I want you guys to hang with us. We're going to have some fun. All right. So look, and by the way, her website is mphcomedy.com. So where you'll find an abundance of laughter and joy. She's bringing joy to the world. All right. So congratulations on your mini special coming out. Tell us a little bit about, maybe some fun that you had doing that. Tell us a little bit about the project, and then, maybe anything funny that might have happened behind the scenes.
Yeah. So I have one special that's out on Amazon, which you alluded to recently. So I'm sure everybody's familiar with the company OnlyFans, whether you subscribe to people or not. I don't know. That's not my business, but they started working with Whitney Cummings, Bert Kreischer, did a couple comedy roasts on their platform to launch LMAOF, which is their comedy-centric channel. So they've been really working to open up the doors for creators beyond what they're known for. I think, things just kind of got away from them as far as how people were utilizing their own platform. So their team has been trying to redesign how people utilize the platform. So they started working with chefs, with race car drivers, and they started this whole comedy channel. So they reached out to me to shoot a mini special, which works out perfectly because my first comedy special was shot on my canceled wedding, which is very nuanced. That was a very specific situation that I turned the room for. And my next special, I want to step into a space that kind of honors my late grandfather, who was a jazz and blues musician in Chicago. So it's going to have like an artsy feel to it as well. And I had this chunk of material that kind of needed to get out that doesn't really fit the new scope of the hour that I'm working for, kind of connects the dots. So it worked out that they offered a mini special. It's like a 10-minute special that'll be coming out really soon. And it answers some of the questions from post canceled wedding to where things are headed now. So kind of timed out really perfectly.
Can you kind of just, rewind a little bit and tell us a little bit about your story and how this registry got started and your breakup, and, tell us as many bad things about this other guy that you could think of. I think that would be a good start.
Well, I'll start with saying that I was in that relationship for 9 years. I'd been in this person's life for 14 years. So we had been friends for many years before we started dating. My relationship with him was the majority of my life in Los Angeles. I now live in Chicago, but I still part-time in Los Angeles because I'm there all the time. So we were together for 7.5 years before he proposed. And I think by then I had already kind of started to think that would never happen. So there was already this kind of separation feeling. And it felt like the proposal was a band-aid in a lot of ways. I'm sure people have been there with relationships, you know, either get a dog or get a ring or whatever it is to try to hold things together. So we were supposed to get married in 2018. We postponed a year because we weren't ready. And then we were supposed to get married in 2019 and that ended up getting canceled. So I turned the room within 3 weeks, found one of my favorite directors in LA that was so excited and available. He flew out, hired a production team. We shot it. I sold the room out. So some people were there that were supposed to be at my wedding. And a lot of people just bought tickets, you know, heard about it through the grapevine, saw it in the news and stuff. And so shot the special, did my own distribution deal with Amazon through a comedy distributor called Comedy Dynamics. And then during the process of waiting for that to come out, because it was shot in 2019 and came out in 2021, that's when I built my breakup registry, when I was actually going through my own breakup in a pandemic.
So just so I understand, everybody understands. So you said you turned the room. So you basically took this, because you were supposed to get married. So it was like you had the places rented out and so turn the room, that means that you basically did a comedy special that night that you were kind of supposed to get married. You ended up doing a special on that.
Yeah,
okay, all right.
Exactly. Yeah, so it was in Madison, which is where I'm from, Madison, Wisconsin. And we were going to use this venue. And one of my good friends, Nate Craig, he's a comedian that's from Wisconsin as well. He used to do comedy shows in that space around the holidays. So I hit him up and I was like, do you think that they would turn my room into a special? And he's like, yeah, of course. Yeah, they have the stage for it. That's the stage you were going to get married on. And then my boyfriend now was also a Madison comedian, so he knew them. And he was like, you know, if you pitch to them that you're going to shoot a special instead and showcase the outside of their venue, they'll probably change your pricing. So they totally redesigned the pricing package for me because it was not a wedding, which is crazy because weddings are like 10x more expensive. So I was able to shoot the entire special for a fraction of what the wedding was going to cost. And it was the exact same food, the exact same seating, the exact same hours, the exact same bar plan. So I had open bar and everything.
And you charged tickets for people actually paid to come as well. Yeah. So that worked out. Yeah. So you really are an entrepreneur. You're like, okay, this asshole just broke up with me. I'm going to turn this into a lucrative business venture. This is what happened, yes? Yeah. Yeah. And I made to the dollar in ticket sales what it cost me to shoot the entire thing. To the dollar. It was crazy. Wow. I did price. And so did you? Yeah. So did you like come up with what was a lot of the material? Because I have not seen that special. Yeah. So, I mean, but was the material a lot about the breakup and like, is that a lot? Yeah. Did you have a lot of material for like about weddings and about breakups and things like that? You know, I had been doing stand-up for 10 years at that point. So yeah, I mean, I had a lot of material. I had probably 2 hours worth of material that I was sitting on. But as everybody knows in comedy, you know, you throw away a lot of that material that you just don't want to put into a special. And then there was some stuff that I had to write just for that day. And it was a one take just because it was, you know, there's not multiple takes. There was just one take. So I had to kind of hope for the best with some of the material because I had written some of it especially for that specific circumstance. There was a couple stories I added in that were true, like about me crashing a wedding that I added into the special. I used to love crashing weddings and I had a really epic one that I crashed a number of years ago. Okay, you got to tell me about it because I have a dream of being a wedding crasher. So it's like one of my favorite movies. Yeah. So tell me about what was this wedding you crashed? It was my birthday in 2019. And I was like, I always like to do something adventurous. I'm more of like an experienced person than I am a stuffed person. So I had this dream of crashing like a really impossible wedding for a while.
when I first moved to LA in 2011, I had worked at the Four Seasons for like 2 years in their lounge. So I had a lot of insider information from the Four Seasons. Everybody knew that this was like a dream of mine. So I found out about this really big wedding, and it's a really, really big wedding. It was like a billionaire family, hoteliers, they own a lot of very big properties. And I knew of the family because I actually shot a commercial for one of those properties, like, back in like 2013, 2014. And so I started doing some research, and I found out one of the family members was getting married at the Four Seasons. So I had a bunch of friends kind of doing some due diligence and figuring out like the timing of the wedding schedule and stuff. So I showed up at the Four Seasons right between the ceremony and the reception, and whittled my way into a red carpet, was like they were photographing everybody and putting them on like this like billboard walking in, and they had me and my now ex up there flashing all night because we were dressed really good, like we looked the part, and nobody knew who we were, but they just accepted us in, and we already knew everybody's names because we did research, and I had all these bucket list items, like getting approval from the bride, getting a video with one of the wedding party, and I got all this stuff. I danced with one of the elders, and hammed it up. And then when it started to kind of fade away at the end of the night, and there was like 15 people left, we were like, all right, we gotta go.
Yeah. It's gonna get way too obvious. So, yeah. Wow, that is fun. That is so fun. So, what other like crazy things have you done, or that you want to do? I mean, any like future crazy things that you want to do?
I've been pretty adventurous in my comedy career. Sorry, there's a siren outside. Can you hear that really bad? It's
okay. I mean, are you like getting arrested now or something like that? You're not being arrested.
They're like, oh, we finally found you.
Yes, they found you.
So one of the more adventurous things that I do usually every year is go perform in St. Croix, which is an island in the U.S. Virgin Islands. I first got an invite to come out there when one of my close friends moved there, and she's like, there's no comedy here, you got to come out here. And I did a tiny run through the islands, well, particularly St. Croix and St. Thomas, with a friend. And this was like 8 years ago. We were co-headlining, so we didn't have like, a full hour that we were happy with yet, but we did it through the islands, and people started to love that. And so I started coming back solo every year with a new hour. And it's a fun place to test because it's kind of like expat vibes. A lot of people lived in the US and moved. I know it's still like a US property, but there's a lot of people that never left those islands that are born on those islands. So it's kind of like locals and expats, I guess you could kind of say. And so I've done shows there every year, and I become like a part of their community, and I sell out there every time I go. And because of that, some people would miss out on tickets. So I've been scouted on other islands from like captains that were like, we missed your show, we could get tickets. Can you come perform at our house? Could you perform on our boat? And like, so I've done some really interesting stuff because of that. So that's one of my favorites. But yeah, I do a lot of adventurous things. As much as I just like adventure.
As much as you can.
As I can.
I mean, I just think life's so dang short. We might as well try to see the world, and I've traveled to so many countries. It's unbelievable, and I feel so blessed and so lucky that I get to do that because. To see other cultures and to meet new people and to make new friends and build new relationships with people all over the world. It's just, it really is a blessing. And so, okay. So then you end up starting this mybreakupregistry.com. So explain to me a little more in detail what this thing is about. And also I'm just kind of curious to know, what are some of the crazy things that people have like signed up to buy other people from this registry?
So it's actually pretty complicated starting a website. When you're starting a website, that's just like your own website, that's different. You could do that on Wix or Squarespace or whatever. But with a startup type of website, you have to have developers, you have to build it with security measures, people's login information has to be safe. So it was really expensive to start. And I did it in a pandemic. So I spent like 40, 50K to get it built. So just for people out there that think that this is like some, side hobby, that irks me when people say that. I'm like, you have no idea. So
it's work.
It's a lot of work. So basically it takes like 15 to 18 different platforms to run it. So I can see everything's built in code on Firebase. And I can see what people put on their registries on the back end by logging in and searching them. So how it all works is for the user, you go in and click start your registry and it takes you to the web app and you can go through it. Kind of leads you through the journey of adding things to your registry or linking your current like Amazon wish list, whatever it might be. You can add things to your registry directly that people can buy for you, just like a wedding registry or a baby registry. Or you can submit for a funding request and like say you're trying to raise $1,500 for a new apartment or your furniture all got taken or whatever it is. So your friends could fund whatever amount they want and participate in that fundraise for you, or a combination of both. So some people do a combination. A lot of people just register for some like household goods, right now, what I'm fundraising for is preparing to expand. So next, there's going to be incorporated brand partners for experiences. So people could register for like a weekend away at certain hotel partners or travel, or they can register coming up for like health and wellness and things like that. So their friends can sponsor their journey in a deeper capacity than just stuff. So that's the next phase, is working beyond the stuff. So it is very complicated. You have to make, brand partnership deals and bring them in to get LOIs so that you can get, fundraising. You have to have traction. You have to have, an email list, all these things. So it's definitely a lot of work.
So, like, were you always entrepreneurial? Like, did you always have this spirit from maybe as a young girl?
Yes. So I was always working. I always knew I didn't like working for other people, even though I've had to do it in a bunch of capacities. But I always had that mentality, even if I had to work with other people or for other people, that I took ownership in what I do, so that, the way I go about things is from an ownership mindset. So, I started farming when I was 9. I farmed all through high school. My first opportunity to go overseas was when I was in 8th grade, summer after 8th grade, for a student ambassador program in Europe, to be a student ambassador in Spain, Italy, and France. And my family couldn't afford it. So I fed veal calves in the morning before school to be able to afford to go on that trip. So I always just hustled in that kind of way. And then when I started Second City, when I was 20, turning 21, I got the inkling pretty quickly that nobody was going to just hand you a career. You're going to have to work really, really hard for a long time and be like a garage band until you're some sort of overnight magical success. So that's when I started, looking into directing, looking into producing, figuring out how to really nourish my own career from a business perspective, because, the more talents you have, the more hireable you are. So it's been a journey. I started my first production company in 2013, started my second in 2017. And then I worked with a lot of startups and brands over the years as well. So everything kind of just came full circle, and starting a startup, it just kind of made sense.
When did you know that you were funny?
It's funny you asked that, because I just headlined in Janesville, Wisconsin this last weekend. One of my good friends from high school came, and he was like, here's when we knew. And this was when I knew too. In my high school, so this was like before social media, obviously way before even smartphones or anything like that. I would carry these little notebooks around with me everywhere, like the little memo pads. And instead of being able to film what was going on, I would take pictures of things with disposable cameras and then like write all these notes and funny quips and quotes and things that people would say. And then I started coming up with my own, funny ideas and concepts, and I would write those down too. And people would have me read those at parties. So they'd be like, bust your thought books out. Let us know what you've got, what you got this week. And it'd be ridiculous stuff. It'd be like, some stuff probably wouldn't be appropriate to share just because I was young, and it would be like, what the heck does that even mean? But it was very like one-linery type thoughts. And so I started getting invited to older kids' parties because they wanted me to entertain them. We would party in cornfields on the back of trucks. And so I would read these at bonfires and like drink beer with the older kids. And it was the first time I felt like that really bonding capacity and that ability to really entertain and hold a room, probably about 14 years old.
And so is it hard? Or is there anything that, because when you go on stage and people are heckling you, or maybe you say something that's not funny and the room goes quiet, I'm sure every comedian has experienced things like that. Is there anything that you do, or do you kind of have a one-liner to shut hecklers up? Or tell us a little bit about some experiences that you've had, good and bad, from the stage.
Time really creates the capacity to handle whatever's thrown at you. There's nothing that concerns me now. I don't really have jarring material for people as far as abrasive political commentary or things like that. So it's rare that I get heckled from like an anger perspective. Usually when I get heckled, it's somebody's drunk, somebody thinks that they're the center of the show and wants to like make the show about them, which it's not. It's usually things like that. Like they're just talking and being oblivious to the fact that you can hear everything from stage. So there's certain times where it's worth mentioning. If it's somebody in the back that doesn't realize they're being loud when they're talking, that's one thing. But if somebody's kind of interrupting the show, I try to come at it from the perspective of this person's not trying to harm you. They just don't understand. So, I gladly handle those things with a nice demeanor. I think I'll still like fuck with them, but I don't do it from like a shut up perspective. It's just more like, all right, you want to be the center of attention? Let's show you who's boss here. I love it. Yeah.
And so, and of course, you always like to play off of certain situations, like the woman that snorted the other day. And that was a great little riff. You played off it so well. And so that was pretty good. I really enjoyed that. So
thank you. I let something inspire a riff whenever possible, like, especially if there's something that I'm about to talk about, if it's, in that case, I was about to talk about some relationship stuff, and, my grandparents were at that show. I think that was when they were at. So, it was just funny to like toss something off the cuff in there. And that's the kind of stuff too, where I don't seek out doing crowd work. Like I don't just sit and interview the crowd and be like, so what's your job? It's not really how I want to spend my time on stage. But when the moment arises to involve the crowd, or they naturally involve themselves, then I love to play with it in that capacity. So, and that's the kind of material we can put out as comics, because then you're not burning it. So that's why you see a lot of crowd work out these days.
And so is comedy something that can be taught? Because obviously funny people, even in business, tend to do well in business. People that, funny people in, if you're doing it the right way and you understand how to get along with people, and you understand, because I just always know, I've done thousands of presentations in the financial business through the years, and not that I'm a comedian or anything, but I'd always try to infuse a little bit of comedy, a little bit of funniness. I would say something that would try to make them laugh a little bit. And so can that be taught, or is it something that is just instinctual? Is it just something that we just are born with?
It can be a combo, but it definitely can be taught. Anything can be taught. I didn't know how the comedy business worked until I just started doing it. I didn't really know what kind of comedy that I would organically want to do or gravitate towards writing until I started doing it. You know, when I originally started my first open mic in Chicago, I was doing one-liner kind of stuff. That is not my vibe at all. You know, I'm a storyteller. So I had to really find that voice through the fact that organically, I'm really myself on stage. So, you know, everybody's got an elevated sense of who they are on stage, but I really am through and through not playing any sort of character but myself. Anything can be taught. I feel like comedy also is very surgical. So people that are very analytical, that's why you see like some doctors that become comedians or attorneys that have become comedians. Comedy is a science, how a room works and functions and lives and breathes. It's like an organism. And comedy itself is about timing. It's about certain plosive words. There's certain things that you can do that make a joke better that you only figure out through doing it and being around other people that are doing it better than you, honestly. So, and it's the same in business. You know, anything can be learned and you can hard work your ass off into being good at literally anything. But just know that it's really the amount of hours you put into it. You know, it's why I never discourage young up and coming comedians. I know a lot of times when people start getting to the top of the crust, they're like, oh, you don't want to get into this business, and screw that. Like, people naturally weed themselves out if it's not their thing, or they will get some chops and it'll make them good at business or real estate or whatever it is, you know? So it definitely is something that you can learn from just by doing.
I think you're right. You're absolutely right in what you're saying, because I think about my son. I have a 21-year-old son. His name's Max, and he is really the funniest person that I know. I mean, he's hilarious, but he's just quick-witted. I think some of it is definitely born with it. Some of it you're born with it, because I'm definitely not as quick and, you know, quick-witted as he, and he just gets things, I think, like you said, like on a scientific level or a technical level, just gets things so much better than I do. I'm just different. I'm a, you know, I don't know, maybe just a personality, hardcore business guy, whatever, but he's like, he'll sit there, and even when he was little, he would want to hang out with all the adults and just listen to them. He just wants to hang out and listen to them and just be around these people. And he's not like he doesn't want to be the center of attention necessarily. He's not that person, but he just sits there and listens. But man, when he says something, it's funny, it's sharp, it's witty, pointed. It's just, and it's smart. You know, it's like, it's actually very intelligent. And so, but anyways, so when you think about the next level for you, okay, so you're working on, you know, you want to do, I'm sure, lots of more comedy specials. I'm sure, you know, do you have aspirations to do movies and TV shows and things like that? I mean, is this kind of the direction you're trying to go to?
Yeah, that's always been the goal. TV more so, but I've done more movies than TV. I just had one come out last year that was a full like mockumentary, you know, improvised movie, which was pretty interesting to do.
And what's that called? So that way we could go watch it.
It's called Dreamland, Storming Area 51. So we actually went to an alien stock festival and made up these characters that we played in the festival the whole time. So it's like a movie within a fake documentary that actually ended up being kind of a documentary as well. So it's pretty fun. You know, we didn't know what direction it was going to go because we were improvising the whole thing. So a lot of it was like created in post, or as we went, the director would be like, hey, do this next. You know, this is kind of where we see this heading. And so it was really a fun project for all of us.
Well, I'm going to watch it. So make sure you send me the link to that where I can watch it. So that way I can also, we'll add it to the description below. So that way everybody we'll try to get some more views. I know my audience, man, they follow everybody I tell them to follow. So they're going to follow you. They're going to blow you up. They're going to ask you questions. They're going to they're going to be your biggest fans.
That's great. I'm here for it. I'm here for it.
Because I'm your biggest fan. I'm your biggest fan already. So for sure, they're going to be your biggest fan for sure.
The biggest thing for me though, I've always wanted to like sell a TV series, and I've been very close a number of times. Like I was on holding and shopping deals in the past with major networks. And the process is really crazy because you might work on something for a year and a half, 2 years, and then have it be this close to getting picked up. And then if it doesn't, it just kind of gets tabled. Then you got to start from scratch. And so I've been through that process many times. But I have a new series that I'm working on that ties in some of the stuff from post my breakup and from my breakup registry into a very, very cool coming of age kind of situation. So I'm excited to dig into that a little bit more and pitch that soon.
Sweet. Do you have a favorite movie, like a favorite comedy, favorite drama, favorite movie that you maybe would watch many times?
To get inspired or something?
Yeah, or get inspired or even laugh. I mean, any...
Yeah, you know, my go-to movies whenever I'm just like trying to put on something to fall asleep to and need something mindlessly entertaining, Sweetest Thing, which was my favorite movie in high school. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but it's ridiculous. And
I don't think so.
Before I started stand-up, I was in improv. And so I miss elements of that because stand-up is very, like I said, it's really fun, but it's really surgical in a lot of ways where you're always trying to like write the best joke, where improv was very free and weird. You got to be weird and goofy and like fuck around, you know, it felt like adult playtime. And so it's fun to be re-inspired to just have these weird elements of a character that are very grounded in a reality that they're just living in. Bridesmaids is another great example of that. Just, you know, perfectly written ridiculousness. And I really like stuff like that. I Think You Should Leave is a series that is great on Netflix. I don't know if you know that show. No. Tim Robinson, he's a Second City guy. I don't know Tim well, but I'm friends with Sam Richardson, who's in that series and many other series. And so he makes a lot of cameos in that show. And it's also just ridiculous. And not everybody gets it, but it's the kind of show that if you get it, you get it, you know? So I love watching stuff like that because it just reminds me like, hey, we're here to have fun. Like you don't have to take this so seriously. Not everything has to be like a perfectly crafted, meticulous, beat, beat, beat kind of joke. Some stuff is just like a silly fucking story and you just get to be weird and free with it and tell it like it is. And, you know, it's nice to have that ingrained in you that you can approach comedy from a lot of different perspectives.
I think that I have to be deranged in the head to some degree because I watched Ted for the first time the other night. And I like literally peed my pants laughing. I was just like, it was so funny. I mean, it was incredibly funny, just crazy, ridiculous, stupid funny. Yeah. And I'm like, I'm sitting there watching this movie. I'm like, I am loving this right now. How did I not watch this like 10 years ago, whenever it came out? And it's just, but it kind of, you know, we need that. We need laughter. I love comedies. I love watching things that make me laugh, that make me feel good, that make even some of the stupid things. You know, sometimes you watch a movie and you're like, I can't believe I just wasted 2 hours on that, you know? Yeah. But if you laughed, then that was a good thing. Because I think that laughter gives us extra years of our life back. I believe that. I believe like health-wise, I believe when we laugh, we get some years back or get some time back. Yeah. And my goal is to go for 120. So man, I'm trying to laugh as much as I possibly can. So,
well, and I agree. I feel like I read something the other day, you know how Instagram works. I'm like, did I really take it in? But here's the essence of it. I read something the other day that was like, they were talking about the age in which you completely kind of lose that whimsical childlike mentality, and it's pretty young. I think it was like 9 or 10 or something, where society has ingrained in you from your surroundings that you're now supposed to start adulting a little bit more and you're supposed to act a certain way. And you know, people change because of the surroundings. I don't mean that in like a negative way, that everybody changes and turns into like some boring adult. But there is an element of that that's true. I mean, there's a part of what it takes to be a good audience, when you're in front of an audience, is to let loose and let your expectations go. And that's really hard for people because we have a very judgmental eye in our society. It's just how it is. There's so much content. There's so many different people creating stuff. I mean, it's easy to judge our surroundings constantly. And so to be reminded that you can just sit back and enjoy something, like even when I go to see other people do stand-up, I don't watch it from the critical eye of, oh, I don't really even think that's funny. What is the point of that? Like, go watch something and fucking enjoy what you're watching. Just let loose and try to find some sort of glimpse of silver linings in it. I'm seeing all these posts about the Barbie movie. It's like, calm down, everybody. It is exactly probably the movie that it's supposed to be. Like, that was their intention. So enjoy it for what it is, or just don't say anything, I don't know.
I hear you. I totally hear you. And I, and what you were saying too, is I think that when we get older, we are so worried about what other people think about us that it's hard for us to have fun. It's hard for us to let loose. It's hard for us. I mean, even me, I was a break dancer in the 80s. Okay.
Oh my God.
I was a badass break dancer in the 80s, man. I mean, I was like, I learned in LA, and then I went to another kind of small town, and I ended up teaching all these, because I came from a more like Mexican lower class neighborhood, and I went to a higher class. My parents got divorced, and then I ended up moving to a better neighborhood with all these white kids, and I taught them all how to break dance. This was my experience, in the 4th, 5th grade. Okay. And so, but then as you get older, because I went into business at 21 years old. So I went full-fledged, focused. I mean, you couldn't get me to do anything other than I was a bad boy growing up. I was a bad kid. I did a lot of bad things, getting in trouble and fights and things like that. And then once I got into business, I quit all that. I got focused. Right. I did what I was supposed to do, and I won. And then, but I think I forgot some of the things that was fun for me a long time ago, like dancing, and so I actually went the other day, and I took a dance class. I just totally out on the whim. I'm like, I'm going to go take a dance class, learn how to do salsa and shit, So I was like, this is totally the most uncomfortable thing for me to do. It was like incredibly uncomfortable. I'm like, I felt like
how to move your body
person moving my body like this again. But I used to be spinning on my back, spinning on my head, popping and locking and doing all this stuff. So it's just amazing how you're right. You're absolutely right. We have to just start to enjoy life a little bit more and start taking this thing just a little bit less serious. Now, we got to be serious. I mean, obviously business or serious things you got to do. You got to deal with, projects and deadlines and do what you say you're going to do and be a person of your word and all those kinds of things. Yes, that's important. Then there's got to be a time, I think, that we just got to let loose a little bit. Go crash a wedding. I'm going to go crash a wedding this weekend.
Or just take what I'm going to do. Vacation because you have the weekend open or you have the ability to clear your schedule. Like I have been, I'm an avid hustler, but I have definitely ground myself in too hard at times. And I always have to take that step back and say, okay, how do I reset? What do I need to do to make sure I'm even creative? Living life makes you creative. Being on stage 3 times a night, every single night, will just make you really good at the same material you're already doing, where you have to go and experience stuff to bring something new and a fresh perspective to what you do. And even in business, I'm a startup founder, and, that world can get really interesting as you start to meet with investors and stuff. I think to them, the right ones, I've been very interesting because I do swear and shit on stage, and I talk about whatever dirty stuff I want to talk about, and talk about my grandma, and I have this perspective and this kind of more free way of approaching that feels edgy and different. And I'm not coming in with a polo being like, oh, I'm this polished, put together person. I'm not. I am an adulted version of myself, but I've always been rough around the edges. And I like that about myself. And that's what makes me scrappy. And that's what makes people interesting. And that's what makes my perspective of humor very relatable. And that's something, you know, you're always capable of bringing who you are, that's organically you, to whatever scenario you're in, because somebody's going to find that so refreshing.
No, you're absolutely right. And by the way, you probably didn't know, but I've been doing my own form of stand-up for 25 years, really. I mean, I speak on stage, but we do it a little bit differently. I do motivational speaking, and we recruit and we train and we develop people. And people ask me, you know, how did you get so good? And I said, well, I mean, I've been doing it for over 2 decades. I mean, you have to get pretty good if you're doing something for over 20 years. I mean, obviously, if you're not good, it's because you haven't been paying attention. But I think, though, that you're right. We need to become more authentic in the way that we present ourselves. I think that I was pretty decent at what I did because I was always just me. And I did say bad words at the right moments, not the whole thing. It wasn't, but at the right moments, I wanted to let people know that I was human.
You're
and
human.
That I was a real person. And I say shit and I say fuck and I get pissed off. And sometimes I think this guy's an asshole, and, I'll say stuff like that. And it would shock people, but it was a good shock, I think, because the wrong people, and this is the way I always looked at it. I mean, if people didn't like me for me, then, and they were going to leave my environment, well, it's just, they don't like me. So we wouldn't have gotten along anyway.
Yeah.
So it's like if somebody doesn't like your form of comedy, they're just going to leave and never watch you again. But
which is fine.
You can't, which is totally fine. You can't allow that person to change your whole perspective of what you do, right?
You're not for everybody, and it's okay. Like my one of my earlier jobs on this farm, I worked at Eichser's Farm Market in Wisconsin. My bosses were a husband and wife, and the wife was fucking rad. She just was gritty, and she would get in there and farm with everybody and handle the dirty stuff. And she just had a perspective that it really nailed it for me. And there was one day that I called her from the farm stand, because we would drive out to different stands to distribute, the produce. And I worked at stand by myself pretty much all the time. And I called her and I was like, I had this really weird customer. They tried to return a watermelon that I remember them buying yesterday. I was just telling her this story, and she was like, give them their money back and tell them that they don't need to come back here. And I was like, really? And she's like, we don't want every customer. Not every customer is for us. And if they never come back and they're going to be a problem, that's a good thing. So it was fun to hear that at a young age, because you don't need everybody to be a fan of yours. You don't need everybody to invest in you. Like, I find, even as I'm doing this funding round, I get to be selective. I get to be selective of who I decide is going to be a part of what I'm building. And I am very selective. And it's not like some sort of power play. It's just like, no, you don't have the control of this environment. I do. I'm building something cool. Same with comedy. Like, I'm doing this. If you don't like it, don't come here. I want people that are going to enjoy themselves when I'm on stage to come to see me, relax a little bit. So, I mean, it's exactly that. It's not everybody's for you, and you're not for everybody. And that's totally fine. Find your people.
It's a great perspective, and especially a lot of people watching right now. There's going to be people from all walks of life, but a lot of the people, they're small business owners, they're small entrepreneurs, and they're also recruiters, because we recruit and train and develop people that want to go into the financial business. And so I always tell people that, look, I mean, you're not going to be for everybody. Not everybody's going to want to jump on your bandwagon. You're looking for the people that are looking for you. Yeah. There are people out there that they're like on Sunday, they're praying that, they can be a part of something great and change their life and an opportunity to make a lot of money and build some passive income and all that kind of stuff. Like, they're praying for that stuff. You're looking for those people. That's it. Yeah, and the rest of the people that say, oh, you're not good, and, I don't believe it, and it's not possible, and I don't see it happening. Those people just are not going to be in your circle. There's nothing wrong with that. They're not bad people.
No. That's it. Yeah. No. But, there's plenty of things to invest in, and there's thousands thousands of people I've met already that, do put money towards stuff. And I'm like, I'm looking for the 4, it's like, not really, I don't need all of ya, looking for my 4 rock stars. And that's kind of the good, perspective to have. Like, even when I started touring for the first time, I would really get to know audiences after. Like, I'd hang out and go get beers with them at bars afterwards, and really just building an organic conversation between people, and like this open bridge where they know that they, like, if they come to a show, they get to be a part of my world a little bit deeper. And I know there's not a way to maintain that forever as you grow and you grow and you grow, but I like that feeling. I'm down home. I like to feel like people are part of my circle. They're like a supporter of what I do. So
I love that about comedians, and I love going to stand-up shows. I always have. And I love that a lot of times they are waiting after the show, and you can take a picture with them, or you can buy some of their material, or you can just, say hi to these people. And I always love that part, because that is very relatable when it comes to business. And I think that a lot of people in business, they don't spend enough time building relationships with people.
Everything.
And so same thing here. When I would get off stage, I would always spend a lot of time. I mean, sometimes, half an hour, 2 hours, until people left, really. And I would spend time with people, and they would ask me questions. They would want to know about my life. And so this was always about a connection, because this is how business is really done. That's why a lot of the best deals in business are done on the golf course. It's because you're building a relationship. You're laughing with somebody. You might have a drink with somebody. You might just exactly. You're learning about this person. You're even learning about how they react to failure and how they react. Are they competitive? Are they super competitive? Do they get pissed off too easy? There's so many things you can learn about somebody in 18 holes on the golf course. So
how they operate,
so make sure you take up golf.
How they comment.
You play golf?
I do. I haven't played. I haven't played for long, and I haven't played in like a year. But I do enjoy. Wow. I do enjoy getting out there.
Cool.
There's a lack of women on the golf course in business, that's for sure.
For sure. But you will change that. You will change that. We're going to, the nationalgolfregistry.com for women. So
yes, right? Exactly.
This is the next one you're going to start. So I love that. Any guilty pleasures? Any guilty pleasures that you maybe have?
It kind of varies. So I really love, I'd say my biggest addiction is like getting outside and running, working out, like adventurous kind of stuff. Guilty pleasures. Sometimes I get into a series. Right now I'm finishing Succession. I'm behind the world. I love that show.
Love that show too.
Yeah, I mean, other than that, I just like to do a lot of different stuff. Do
you write a lot? I mean, like how does a comedian's life work? I mean, do you get up every day and you write something? Do you have a certain time of your day that you try to dedicate to writing or coming up with material? Or because I know with you have so much material from all of these years. It's probably a little easier. I'm the same way. I do a coaching program, and I have so much content. It's coming out of my ears. I don't have to plan as long as I used to, but is that kind of the way it works for you at this stage?
I don't really block off time in particular to write. I know some people that do, and that works really nicely for them. But I do journal every day. So I do get ideas out. More so it's not comedy. It's just more like feelings, how I'm going through stuff, things I'm trying to learn. And organically from that, good material starts to come up from just me like going through my life. So I kind of just, reflect, try to gather my thoughts. And then later I find the funny perspective when I'm like talking to friends. A lot of times when I'm hanging out with friends, I'll shoot myself an email that has the subtitle joke, and that way I can easily find them. So then before a show, I'll go through and look at all my recent little jokes and try to figure out what I can nestle in and write on stage. I do a lot of my writing on stage. I like putting myself on the spot. I end up coming up with better tags for stuff if I'm just kind of winging it, because then I know I have to be funny in the moment. That's not advice or something that everybody does, but it's what works for my brain. And then I play with it, a bunch until I conform it into something that I'm like, all right, this is what I'm keeping.
And do you have any advice for young comedians that are trying to come up in the world? I mean, what would you tell them?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the best advice possible is just to do it. If it's something that interests you, get on stage, go to mics. I mean, I don't really do open mics anymore, but when I first started, I did them all the time. Now I have enough show bookings and get enough hours in a week where that isn't as much of a need, but I still went to an open mic on Monday. Sometimes the time and the repetition and the just getting in front of people is really necessary. And even if the open mic is shit, like even if it's a bunch of comedians hanging in the back judging you, you're really getting out there for you. You have to get the words out of your body and get the thoughts out so that you can figure out what it becomes. And it really is that 10,000 hours, just like anything. You just have to put the time in, and it'll make sense to you if it's worth continuing or not.
When I decided to do this podcast with you, when we had talked about this even last year, because we talked about it last year, mm-hmm. and I never thought it was going to be so relatable to business. But like mm-hmm. everything that you're talking about, like business and sales and entrepreneurship, but I mm-hmm. never thought it was going to be so relevant. It's incredible. Like mm-hmm. everything you are talking about has to do with the life of a salesperson, of somebody that's trying to build a business. I mean, you got to put in the hours, you got to get the 10,000 hours, you got to go through failure, you got to have some hecklers, because we have hecklers, right? We got our family members that say, are you a millionaire? They used to tell me, are you a millionaire yet? Are you, making millions with that thing yet? And I would always tell them, I'm just on my way. Just give me some time. I'm just on my way. And I just think that there's so many things that are so relevant to that person that's trying to make their way in this world, that we all kind of go through the same thing. We all go through the same shit. We all go through the same heartaches. We all mm-hmm. go through the same. I mean, a lot of people have gone through the breakups and the heartaches and the shit and all that stuff. And for you to come out on the other side with a smile, with happiness, with joy, with maybe not in that moment, but eventually you knew eventually you're going to take a bad situation. Like, when I first got in business, I had a buddy of mine that was really nasty to me. And it was terrible because he was my best friend. But I used that fuel. I used him making fun of me and putting me down and not being supportive to my goals as my best friend. And I used that as fuel. And I was like, I'm going to go win. I'm going to go prove that this thing works. Yeah. Just because I wanted to prove him wrong. I mean, really, I think partly I won in business because I wanted to prove that asshole wrong. Yeah. And so I think sometimes we have to, instead of when we go through breakups or depression or challenges or whatever, we need to take those situations and use them to our benefit versus crawling into a corner and crying. I mean, you might cry for a little while, but man, you better pick yourself back up really fast. Say, what do I got to do? How am I going to use this situation like you did? You're a perfect example. You used a negative, bad situation and you turned it into making a profit. How cool is that?
Yeah. I mean, I'm naturally kind of designed that way. And I know not everybody is. I try not to take fuel from negative feelings and make it inspire me, but more so for me, I try to say, okay, I've got to be better than who I was before. So if I went through this, how can I make sure other people maybe feel better if they're going through this thing too? Because this is going to happen to a lot of other people. You're not alone. So that's how I felt with the shooting of the special. I was like, all right, I made the best possible scenario out of this. It's not for me. It's more for the people that have also had canceled weddings and got stood up at the altar or whatever their situation might be. And for my breakup registry, it was for the aftermath of that. Like, I wish there was more beyond this moment where I get to be on stage entertaining people in this really dark time, what can I do to maybe cushion that for other people so they don't feel that? Where can I extend some services beyond this moment in time? So that's always my thought pattern. Like, how can I keep somebody from going through this thing that I went through by either relating to me, laughing about the scenario, or through other resources that I can scrounge up and provide. And so that's essentially everything that I put my stamp of Natasha on, is something I'm going to figure out how to make things better for other people so they don't have to experience what I experienced.
Well, you have definitely inspired a lot of people, and there's going to be a lot of people that are going to reach out to you, a lot of people to watch your movies, a lot of people excited that they got to see you right now in this moment in your life as you're building yourself to that next level of success. And we're excited for you. We're going to root for you every step of the way. Natasha, tell us again how people can get a hold of you, how they can reach out to you, and how do we connect?
So Instagram is a good forum for that, and PH Comedy. I also have my website, which has a mailing list, or on my tour section, it has a sign up for where you want to see me perform. So that is a really good way to submit your information for what city you'd like to see me or meet me in. That's nphcomedy.com. Everything's at NPH Comedy. I am active in my DMs as much as I can be. Sometimes we have to put a little boundary on that because it can really be overwhelming. But I do get back to people, and I do see everything, and I do respond to people, especially through their breakup stories or issues with relationships. I love to try and be there for people for those kinds of things. So those are the best places to find me and to communicate. And yeah, just Google Natasha Pearl Hansen to find everything else, or look up Amazon Natasha Pearl Hansen, Apple Natasha Pearl Hansen. You'll find a bunch of fun things to watch.
Well, thank you again, Natasha. This has been one of my favorite episodes on Wealth on the Beach podcast. For all of you that were with us this entire time, I just want to remind you that if you, we have a great sponsor, Audible. So check out audible.com, my Wealth on the Beach book. We converted it into an Audible, so make sure you check that out. If some people like to listen to audiobooks versus reading. Of course, Amazon, you can get my book, Wealth on the Beach, on Amazon. And of course, we have the podcasts on iTunes and Spotify. Of course, the YouTube channel is where you're probably watching this right now. But thank you so much for being a part of even my journey throughout all of these years that we got to hang out. And it's fun to connect with all of you guys. As always, make sure that you connect with me on Instagram, and we have the Wealth on the Beach coaching program as well. Go to wealthonthebeach.com to check that out. But sincerely, keep connecting with me. Keep asking me questions. Keep saying hello and commenting, liking, all that kind of stuff, because it really makes a difference. And I promise you that I'm going to continue to bring value to your life every chance I possibly can. With that said, everybody, continue to dream bigger than ever. Make sure you get after it, though. You have to get after it. And most importantly, do it now. God bless. We'll see you at the top.